Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tarnished Bronze. Today we have the writer of X Factor, the artist of Legion of Superheroes. We've got Spider-Man, we've got the X-Men, we've got Black Tom Cassidy, and we've got the Juggernaut. And we are here at last for Marvel Team Up 150. Now, Patrick, did you get this off the shelf on the
Yeah,
day of release?
I did. I was 10 years old and somehow came across this comic book. It was definitely one of my favorites from childhood, and read it so many times. And in rereading it, it's crazy how many tiny little details are completely ingrained in my memory. Like crazy.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of those details later. But one of the things I want to point out just with the cover is it's a Barry Windsor-Smith cover. Patrick and I are highly divided on this. But one of the things that I enjoy about this cover is the insouciance of Spider-Man there. His pose just makes him look just he's ready for the catwalk. I think he's just done his turnaround and is ready to stroll back. He's just not having a bar of whatever is going on.
I
Um,
kind of like how solemn the X-Men look that Marvel Team Up is ending.
yeah, they're very sad about it.
One question I had though, and again, I didn't think this until the very moment that you brought this up. Does Rogue have her hands in her pockets?
She's got high pocket. It's a sort of actually I will say this. The clothing that Barry Windsor-Smith does is really, really good, especially compared to some of the clothing that'll be in the issue. So I was really disappointed. I thought everyone was going to be wearing a trench coat, an ensemble number, like something really fun. Even Cyclops makes the red outfit look, very distinguished. It's not,
Colossus.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
Colossus, sorry, makes it the red outfit look distinguished. Like
Yeah, you know, I like his.
he does have that V shirt that you would see at the electronic music festivals. Like he is ready to get some glow sticks, get some vodka Red Bulls into him, and just rave out. He's ready.
He's not working out like that for a sport. It's definitely to attract some attention at the club.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I just want to say that, a man drew this, but he gave a woman pockets in her dress. And so I know women across the world will be rejoicing over this because this is the thing. And I don't know if you're aware, but this is a thing in the women's world where they do not feel like they have enough pockets in their clothing. So I'm sure that if we have any female subscribers, I'm sure they were thrilled to see that Rogue actually had pockets to
yeah.
use.
I'd like to say hello to the 14 people who follow us, all 13 men and one woman. So that's fantastic.
We're hoping.
Yeah,
We want diversity.
and you wouldn't know that Barry Windsor-Smith would be so good at drawing female clothing, considering the lack of it that's in all of the Conan comics. So, he is really good at it. You should maybe hit him up. Versace, Target. He can do highbrow, lowbrow. They should all hit him up to design some women's clothes.
Runway, ready to wear. We're good.
Yeah. So now that we've got that out of the way, 150 issues of Marvel Team Up. This was the sort of pseudo fourth Spider-Man book, right? In for Marvel at this time.
This is like Spider-Man and whomever. So yeah, the Spider-Man team up. And I think I just read recently that because again, it's how life always imitates art. I don't know if you want to call this art, but I mean what we're doing. This is definitely art that we're reviewing. But I just happened to see, whatever comic, oh, these old 30, 40-year-old comics that we're reading, and then I end up seeing like people talking about them in other media. And I think this was replaced by Web of Spider-Man,
Okay.
which I don't think was a team-up book, but I guess I think I may have one issue of Web of Spider-Man from that time period, but I think that's Marvel team-up ended, and I think Web of Spider-Man started the next month.
Yeah, yeah. So this was sort of the equivalent of Brave and the Bold, or there's one other DC
DC
comic.
Comics presents.
Yeah, that always had Superman or Batman or something as the main feature. So Patrick, your first exposure to Greg LaRocque would have probably been Legion, right? Or this is your first
Well,
exposure.
yeah, this because this came out before he became a Legion writer, probably in the later 80s.
Okay.
So this is 1984. So yeah, this is when I remember loving the art in this. I actually feel like the art in this, because it's more realistic, and sort of present day, is a bit of a departure. Maybe his style changed too. I mean, I'm no Greg LaRocque expert, but I do think that it's different in this comic, quite a bit different than what we see in Legion. If I recall, I think he drew the Universo
Yeah, yeah,
project.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
So
and if you remember, it was very different from this.
yeah, so that's what I was sort of I couldn't I knew this came out before, but I wasn't so aware that he had such a major sort of departure. Especially this present maybe it's just the fact that it's in the present day.
Yeah.
The other thing is this on the channel end for us, I think, is the first Louise Simonson that we've
Mm.
covered. Now, I remember her from doing the X Factor issues, and X Factor kind of popped up in the Hellfire thing where the original X-Men are kind of like a covert team. So you said that you didn't follow that, Patrick, but what would have been your first Louise Simonson issues?
Well, I had the first 10 or so
Oh,
X Factors. So, and then I think they maybe changed to an artist that was kind of a bit of a messier style. And when I was a kid, I couldn't really couldn't handle it if the art wasn't neat. I was maybe too OCD. But
uncultured.
yeah. So I think probably she may was she the writer from issue one?
I think so. I think she did that first sort of arc with these the sort of CIA of the X-Men style.
So yeah, so that was probably it. But yeah, I know her more. At that time, I definitely wasn't paying attention to who was writing the comics. I was just consuming. But I know her more of as a Legion fan. Who I honestly, when I first knew of her name, the way I learned about it, I would have assumed that she was completely a Legion fan who only got into comics to write Legion, because she's a Legion fan who became the writer of Legion eventually during one of the reboots. So I actually didn't realize that she was already in the comic business before she worked on Legion. So sorry, not trying to reduce Louise's contribution. And I think she's married to a guy who also, I think they were a husband wife writing team when they wrote for the Legion. So
Okay, no, that's kind of
I,
interesting because
I could be wrong, but I think so.
I think Big Walt and Louise actually met in the Marvel bullpen, so that's kind of a fun story.
Oh, you know what? Then maybe I take that back. Maybe she wrote with a different man, because I don't think it was Walt Simonson, but I do think that she co-wrote the Legion.
Okay,
So
so, I mean, she's a very erudite sort of person in her own right, and I imagine that she would have had a lot of good contacts with other creators and stuff. So maybe that's how the Legion came about. So Patrick, this is we've done the X-Men, we've done a lot of these characters before. I think this is the first time we're covering Spider-Man. Now, what was your is first exposure to Spider-Man? Because I know you're not a Spidey head, but
not crazy about, but he was just rampant in the popular culture at that time. So honestly, it could have been a TV show. I mean, there was a live action TV show with a Spider-Man character, and then he was in one-off books, right? So I honestly, oh, you know what? It may be in the Fantastic Four. With the Frightful Four that we're going to eventually do for the channel. That may have been one of my first Spider-Man comic books, but I think Spider-Man, like I said, he was just sort of in the zeitgeist. I think I was Spider-Man for Halloween one year before
okay.
I even really had many comics. Also, I just want to back up one moment. I think I'm completely getting Louise Simonson mixed up with someone else. I completely apologize. I'm thinking of the Beer Bombs.
Okay.
And they were the husband wife team. And I think
Yeah.
her name is also Louise. So anybody
Okay.
who watches this, lots of people know way more about creators and artists than I do. They're probably thinking what an idiot I am. I'm so glad that I remembered that to correct it. So scratch everything I said about her.
So tarnished bronze, where Patrick is always wrong. I think it's
Yes.
Mary Beerbaum might be the person who
I
you're
think you're
thinking of.
right. And and
Uh,
that was the husband wife. I was like, no, there's something wrong. And they were Legion aficionados, super fans who ended up becoming authors. So yeah, once you said Walt, I was like, oh wait, no, I've got the wrong person. So okay.
okay, so now that we've cleared that mess up, Tarnished Bronze viewers, let's get on with the show. My first Spider-Man, I think, would have been in the 330s to 340s, and Eric Larson issue. And people who follow the channel know that I'm a big fan of Eric Larson, and there's some other episodes covering some of his stuff. But I don't think I was a Spider-Man sort of uh, follower until late, like, don't blame me, until later in the 90s after the Clone saga
Mm.
was over. Now, I didn't avoid the Clone saga on purpose. It just so happened I avoided it by accident. And who should it be but JR doing the Spider-Man book? I think that's when I started picking it up regularly. And constant viewers of the channel know how much we love John Romita Jr.
Mm.
over here. So here is a bit of a John Romita Senior looking page, Patrick. Your thoughts? He's drawing the John Romita Senior is famous for Mary Jane Watson, and it seems like Greg LaRocque has some cheesecake in his veins as well, Patrick.
Well, the Sun Bunnies, right? I remember so many things, like I said, really fascinated me, the details of this comic. The cigar store Indian in
Yeah,
his apartment. I just remember being fascinated by the idea that, and it's probably Louise's writing, she really creates a Peter Parker that is relatable to a young kid. He's like a young person who's on his own. He has his own apartment, and these were all things that were just, so fascinating to me. He he's perplexed. He's vexed by the Sun Bunnies, blocking his access to the roof so that he can get in and out in his costume. But at the same time, maybe he's a hot-blooded American young man, so he's also has a different reaction to them as well, I think.
yeah. Just great sort of interior shots of a house that's full of furniture, and then we get the roof shot, and the apparel that they're wearing is sensible. So these aren't people in a bathing costume and high heels. They're wearing their thongs or their flip flops or whatever. Just we're two countries separated by a common language here, Patrick. It's all,
Yeah, they're not in thongs. That's the difference.
yeah. It's all
The
been
other kind.
all sort of realistic in a way that maybe I wasn't expecting, seeing as I read this after all those Legion issues.
I will
Now
say
we
this,
have the
I thought in the reread, and I don't mean to be too critical, but I did think that some of the writing seemed a little stilted and kind of stiff. I think it gets better as the issue goes on, and certain characters, their dialogue is better than others. Um, but um, but some of it, when I first started reading it, I thought it was reading a little juvenile at first.
I
So I
think
don't.
this is for 10 years, for 10-year-olds, Patrick, and you were 10, and that's there was it's not a problem. But we'll probably get into that when we do our final appraisal. It's just like, if I was 10, this hits all the Spider-Man beats. Like, his landlady's here, he doesn't have the rent, all that Peter Parker stuff. So the beauty of Peter Parker is he has all of these problems, and then when he puts his Spider-Man suit, he has a whole different host of problems, but they're not that, it's an escape from his real life, but he goes out of the frying pan and into a fire. Here he's got to move heaven and earth so he doesn't lose his secret identity to the landlady, who just seems a bit gruff. I am doing a reread of the Roger Stern issues, which are around this time, and so Peter Parker is not living with Aunt May. Aunt May is living in a different facility. Eventually, Aunt May will move back to the Parker household, but Peter Parker has an apartment. And he's flying solo for a bit. And I will say, Greg LaRocque does draw a nice Peter Parker. You can't make him too built.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree. I remember being oddly fascinated by him pulling up his pant legs and pretending like he had just gotten out of the shower. I thought that was just genius and just interesting as a kid. Also, Mrs. Muggins, how evil does she look? She looks like an old picture of Baba Yaga or something.
Yeah, I'm expecting this apartment to actually sprout chicken legs at any time and just wander down, Fifth Avenue and find a new, better spot for real estate values, Patrick. Your
She's
thoughts
gonna
on that?
show up in her mortar and pestle and sweep him off to like Siberia or something. I don't. Yeah, I mean, especially in that bottom panel in the middle, she
Yeah.
looks. Is she secretly a villain? Like, I don't know.
And she looks much taller and more imposing than our hero Peter Parker as well. So
That's
it's not good for except for the people who are sunbathing on his roof. I don't think it's a really fun environment for Peter Parker.
mm-mm, no. And
And
he's
here
only a
we get
couple of weeks late too, by the way.
yeah, here we get the main man. Your thoughts on LaRocque's Juggernaut, Patrick?
Uh, did you say The Rock's Juggernaut?
LaRocque's Juggernaut.
I was like, did The Rock play Juggernaut?
You heard it here first. We're on the pulse of pop culture,
I
Patrick.
was like, what? My head just exploded. Oh, yeah, love. I feel like the Juggernaut that he's actually his dialogue and his sort of inner dialogue was right when it started to me the writing was falling into the sweet spot. I think Simonson does a great job with him. I've always loved the Juggernaut. Love his design with the sort of rounded helmet. He's kind of got a different silhouette than you normally see. Perfect, excellent power set. He's so unstoppable. He's somebody that when he shows up, you feel like the stakes are automatically raised, which I love. And just very simplistic, weak-minded, bullying characteristics, which is what you want to see, in a villain. Not always, but we like different kind of villains. He's not sort of one, he's more of a simple-minded kind of juvenile villain, whereas not maybe necessarily as evil and uh, lethal as some of the others, but still, for whatever reason, really felt like he raised the stakes when he was around. I want to say that maybe I first saw Juggernaut in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I can't remember if I asked you this before, but it was like a Saturday morning cartoon. You should YouTube it. You could maybe there are a couple of episodes where the X-Men co-star or
Oh, okay.
cameo, and they're really good. I think
It's
even
got Firebird,
today,
right?
I'm sorry,
Firebird, Firestar.
Firestar, and Iceman and Spider-Man, and they live in this apartment where you can like move something on the shelf, and everything flips over into like the kind of computer panels with no chairs that you love. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but no, that was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid, and I think the Juggernaut was in one of them that the X-Men was in. So.
yeah. I highlighted this page because this is one of the better depictions of Juggernaut that I've seen. To be honest, I thought in some parts the art was maybe a little bit wonky, to be honest, but here it's like really on song. And we also have to give a bit of a dispensation. I think it might be a double-sized issue, so some of the recapping and the tedium might just be a result of all those extra pages. But LaRocque's Juggernaut does look excellent. And then just I had to put this page on here because like there's just so much internal monologue, so much dialogue. Like we're hitting the Peter Parker tropes pretty heavy, aren't we? Aren't we, Patrick? And he's walking around with his camera like a tourist. I really love the fact that this Peter Parker, professional photographer, amazing Spider-Man, scientist, wannabe lady killer, is just walking around with this thing. You know, like he should be in Times Square photographing all of the fun stuff in New York City.
Two of the things I loved, and again, the details that just stuck with me for so long, is the girls just completely confronting him about ratting them out as soon as they set eyes on him. I mean, I don't know why. I just really loved that as a kid. I just thought that was so great. And the fact, and you can see the look on his face.
Yeah,
And this is every 10-year-old, right? But I mean, especially me, I love cake. I mean, I still love cake. Who doesn't love cake? But just Peter Parker, he's hungry, he's tired, and this girl offers him a free piece of cake, and it's like somebody wanted to give him, like a gold bullion. And I just love it. Like I could really relate to that as a 10-year-old, I guess.
yeah.
And it's chocolate cake too. Like it just rolls off the tongue.
I will admit that the Peter Parker stuff, the landlord, the sugar babes or whatever they are, great facial. Like LaRocque is just really nailing this stuff, and I can see why eventually he'll have Dream Girl and Satin Girl and all of that stuff going on in his future. I can see someone looking at this would go, "This is what we need this guy to be doing." He does the really great emotion, like he can convey the character's emotions here, and do some really cool camera angles. And the foreground, like you can see the picnic basket. It is really great here. But so Peter Parker's still got Peter Parker problems. Um, the X-Men, what are they up to? They're in the danger room. This is where I think the clothing falls apart because I really liked everyone's outfits on the cover, but I don't think like I think that's a reason LaRocque does the Legion so well is because he doesn't have to draw haberdashery. Because I find Rogue's outfit like just real strange. Like a poncho with a belt. Just
I actually really like it. I can see how it would be constricting and maybe not great for action, but I love those sleeves. I don't know. Yeah, I really like it actually. And
so
she's
you
got
want
the
to hide
slouch.
things up your sleeve, Patrick? Is that the
Yeah, and she's got the pirate slouch boots, so it's like the pirate boot, but it's a slouch boot. I really love any action sequence in the Danger Room. You're gonna sell me, especially as a 10-year-old. I still am the same 10-year-old I was back then. Anytime we're in the Danger Room, I'm loving it, and I really love Colossus's pose here at the top of this page.
Yeah, no, it's a good Colossus, and I was just going to say his Juggernaut feels like it has weight. His Colossus feels like he has weight in him as well. Another really good panel. Um, and what's going on in this? Like, I, I don't know. I just want a whole comic just full of Peter Parker reading the newspaper, Peter Parker watching TV, Peter Parker paying his rent. It just seems like an
And this
episode
is
of
it was
Dynasty or some famous soap opera, but just denuded totally of all the things that make it a soap opera.
You always say the interstitial parts, and this is again, we're back to just some guy, in his apartment struggling. He doesn't have soda and he wants a lot of cola.
Yeah,
And again, like these are the details that when I reread it, I was like, oh my God, I remember him wanting a lot of cola. I remember the hole in the sock, and like it's stuck with me for 40 years. And with the peanut butter on the table, and I think that was my dream was to be poor and to live in my own apartment away from my parents and just have a jar of peanut butter and a sock with a hole in it.
one of the things I'm worried about is his table or the desk there. I really hope there's biscuits in those joints because otherwise that table is going to become very uneven because it's made out of planks, not timber. Just very strange table.
He's also got the Buddha next to the TV, which is kind of weird,
Oh,
but
the feng shui is out of
yeah.
whack in his apartment. But nonetheless, this is how he realizes that the Juggernaut is on the loose. And I think we've just had the episode in Amazing Spider-Man where nothing stops the Juggernaut. Now, this may have to be edited out. I really like the Roger Stern and JR Jr. Spider-Man series, but nothing can stop the Juggernaut except the tedium of the reader. So let's see how this episode of the Juggernaut or this issue with the Juggernaut goes. So Peter Parker just looks alarmed. Once again, more good facial stuff here. This is a cool panel. I mean, a cool
Now,
page.
do you think, okay, I'm glad you said that because I had this in my notes. I felt like this page was so forced because when at first you talk about reading tedium, it's like and this and this. And I was just wondering, are they trying to sell other Spider-Man books? Like there's this inner dialogue is, oh, well, it's a monologue, I guess, is just a lot.
The only thing that saves it is how cool the first panel looks.
I think the art looks good, but in the writing here, and again, I'm not trying to pick on Simonson because, like I said, I love this comic book, but I almost feel like editorial was like, we need a page in the last team up that's going to sell Spider-Man books to people who buy this number
Yeah.
150. So then they're like, oh, what's going on with Black Cat? Oh, well, I guess I need to buy Web of Spider-Man or yeah.
By the way, Black Cat doesn't appear in this issue. He's got the three bunnies in this issue. Between the cats and the bunnies and the everyone else, I mean, there's just too much going on.
You got the rhino, the vulture, the
Yeah,
scorpion, octopus.
yeah. So to you, here's an idea, Patrick, to sell more Spider-Man comics. How about we have more cool pictures of Spider-Man?
And
Um,
less word
Rather than
bubbles on this
a
one.
description of what you might want to read in a different comic entirely. In a in internal monologue style. You're very right. So this is we're going to go again at the end here, but this is where the incongruity of like some of the stuff in this issue is absolutely out of this world good, and then some of this stuff just in 2025 just seems a very strange choice.
Well, here they say maybe that's why he says maybe that's why Mary Jane told me blah blah blah. Like, what? Who's Mary Jane? I mean, I know we know who Mary Jane is, but you know what I mean? Like, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Like, let's get to the Juggernaut. Where are the X-Men? Like, come on.
Yeah.
What about the Sun Bunnies?
It seems like Black Tom Cassidy and the Juggernaut have their own bunch of snow
Sun Bunnies.
sun bunnies in the Greg LaRocque. I mean, he might be sort of typecasting himself here. Um, I'm not so sure that I really want to be in a hotel apartment that has no balcony, according to the establishing shot on the left, and yet the windows open.
All the way to the floor.
Yet that seems like a disaster waiting to happen. And I mean, I hope there's no alcohol served at this birthday party because otherwise everyone will just see slipping and falling out.
And maybe actually because look in the panel above, it does look like maybe the window doesn't go to the floor. So maybe it's just the perspective in the lower
Okay.
panel that makes it look like it goes to the floor.
All right. Well, I'll give you a little bit of grace there. But once again, Juggernaut looks really cool and it makes him look massive. Black Tom Cassidy just irritates the shit out of me.
Really?
All like just so just annoying. And I'm not sure if he's annoying because I read all those X-Men comics, so he seems to do nothing except just pop up and be in.
Bluster.
Yeah, just I don't know. I find him a hard character to actually latch onto, and maybe because he is such a sort of cipher, he's everything that you need him to be, depending on the plot. That might be a thing where I just can't find a connection to him. But they're sort of frenemies, right?
Yeah, and I think I was sort of drawn a bit to his like this was my first I didn't have the older X-Men comics at this time because this is before classic X-Men had come out. I also did not know the word shillelagh, so I have no idea how my mind interpreted that word when I saw it in comic books back then. Also, there's a character Siobhan in in Legion of
Yeah,
Superheroes. Did not know how to say her name. I don't know how I read her name. And then maybe Rain too. I think I always thought her name was Ron. Um, with the wolf girl.
yeah.
Anyway, I think I was kind of drawn to Cassidy's sort of, he's machismo,
His roguish
womanizing.
good charm.
Yeah, like all the women think he's so hot and he's into himself and yeah, I was like he's pissed off when he gets the Juggernaut powers because his clothes are ruined. He's like, "How am I gonna fit into anything?" And Yeah, there was something about him I really liked in this issue, I have to say. But I didn't have the baggage from before.
Okay, so it must just be my baggage, and he does, he kind of looks a bit cooler here than some other depictions I've seen. And you're a sucker for the pirate boots, so I guess yeah.
Anybody who wears pirate
So here's where we get into the crux of the matter, right? And look at that facial expression of like when he gets the Sitarak thing. That's pretty good. And foreshadowing is the key to good writing, Patrick. I told you about that door in the window in the
And now look too, and now I had forgotten, but you can see now it goes all the way to the floor. So our instincts were correct.
and look at that body strength that Juggernaut has just to, you know, that's pretty impressive.
What the free climb? I
Yeah,
think it's really cool that the Marvel universe, has these, there's the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak, which was probably just a throw off,
yeah.
I would imagine, at some point. And then it became the Ruby, which was also red, which then became the source of the Juggernaut's power. And I mean, I'm assuming that's probably the timeline. I doubt that the Juggernaut's origin was fleshed out before the phrase Crimson Bands of Cyttorak was coined.
Is it part of an Infinity Gem or is that unrelated?
I think unrelated, but who knows how they've retconned things since then. But I love a MacGuffin. I love a power object, especially if it's a large, colorful jewel. Like, I definitely loved the ruby back in the day. So I thought that connection is kind of cool. And I actually really like the way these two guys are supposed to be friends. But now that Juggernaut knows that Black Tom has Juggernaut powers, he's just lays into him, throws him out the window of a skyscraper. He's like, you'll be all right.
Yeah. To be fair, once the action starts, it does go at a pretty good clip. Some of these, this is some of the wonkiness that I was kind of referring to is the sort of panel on the left. I mean, individually, the Spider-Man looks pretty cool, and Black Tom is in a cool pose, but it's kind of just looks a little wonky to me. But it's all action, and the motivations are pretty clear. That's the other thing that I'm kind of getting out of this. And is it is this the Siterac sort of thing? Is that molding Black Tom's mind to sort of make him act a little bit out of character? Or does it just amplify things that you already desire as far as the Juggernaut power goes?
Oh, they kind of hit on that, don't they? At the end, well, I don't know that the ruby is affecting them mentally. I think they go into Juggernaut's, in particular, his baggage, but I think Tom is probably, I think I almost said Uncle Tom. I think Tom, sorry. I think Tom is I think he's acting within character. He's upset that his life he thinks has been turned upside down by his friend, even though Juggernaut meant well. I think he's
Yeah.
more pissed off about that.
Okay. I
And
just
and back to what you said about the action sequences, I think the action sequences from here to the end, I think that's I think the Peter Parker private moment times are really great, and I do think I really keyed into those as a kid, but the action sequences are really excellent.
yeah. Yeah, just really cool stuff. Lots of rubble. If you have Juggernaut and Spider-Man in the room together, you got to have rubble. And just look at this little mini skinny panel, how cool that is with all of the, Spider-Man just kind of in the midst of all of this carnage and chaos. And the X-Men aren't alerted yet, right? Like this is all just happening to Peter Parker. Yeah, just great shots. Look at that, like just, the hand right in the foreground and Black Tom Cassidy in the background. Just really good stuff. He's getting his ass kicked here, and then this is just by a sub-powered Juggernaut, right? Like in a sort of powered up Cassidy, but yeah, it's not looking good. And then we get a trench coat alarm um, with
Oh
Phoenix
yeah, we
there.
didn't see the X-Men show up in another little sort of halfway through splash page and immediately began to save Spider-Man. And they actually refer back to their dust up in Secret Wars #3, which was an issue that I did have. I only
Okay.
had 1, 2, 3, and 7 when they first came out in '84. So I knew that Spider-Man had had a run-in with the X-Men, and they kind of immediately put that aside to save him from Juggernaut. So I think it puts them in a good light. And then the action really begins.
Yeah, yeah, no, these are I'm picking some of the panels, some of the pages here that just have just some kind of insightful stuff. I didn't know Cassaday's club was so high tech, or if it's a wand or something.
It's his mutant power is to with the inner is to have energy blasts, and he uses that as his focal point
Okay,
to fire his mutant power. Yeah,
I'd get a I'd get a
one of
better
my favorite.
stick.
And I think any stick will probably work, but that's the particular stick he's chosen. But one of my favorite panels in this is the one where Nightcrawler is kind of perched on his arm.
Yeah,
That's that's great.
yeah, I love the foothold that he has too.
Now, one problem I had with the action sequences, and like I said, I feel like they're really good and well thought out, and this is a good battle in terms of keeping track of where the people are and what their actions are. There is a couple of pages where Juggernaut just sort of goes MIA. He's not really doing
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah.
And I did feel like it was a little bit of a mistake. Again, not to be, too
So
nitpicky or
that's
critical.
this page and a couple previous.
When
It
he's
just
in the rubble, yeah, and then there's another page too where Black Tom lifts a building that then kind of collapses on him. And I was like, oh, it probably would have made more sense if Juggernaut had was the character that lifted the building, and then we'd at least know what he was doing. But he's sort of off panel for a couple of pages, and Tom's taking on everyone by himself.
Yeah, yeah, it's the Tom Cassaday show, and here's where the I think once again my critique of the haberdashery kind of is like, this is not a costume, nor is it anything that I
I
just find
love
it.
it.
All right,
You got the turtleneck and the sleeves, the belt, the slouch boots. Yeah. I love seeing her get bit swole. Like, it's
no, that
so
was another thing where I was like, oh, is this the rogue power, or is this just something? And I know it's the rogue power, but when I first looked at the page, I was like, oh, someone had some sort of physical episode where they were trying to draw Rogue in this panel, but I
you
realized it's her
love, yeah,
getting
it's
juggy.
because she's taken on the physical Juggernaut characteristics. You've got to love those eyes. That first panel is amazing, and
Yeah,
the Kirby crackle, as you call it, just brilliant there. I love it.
I
And then when
do,
she's
I
facing
do
off
love
with
it.
him,
Yeah,
like two bros at the gym who've had too much, human growth hormone or whatever. One of them bumped the other one's girlfriend or something. Like, I love that.
yeah, yeah, and Rogue's current haircut makes this kind of look sort of way more legitimate than perhaps her future haircut would have made this look. Like, it really makes it work. And like I said, great fight scenes, great stuff, great physicality here. It's a pretty fun beat 'em up comic, and then we get like Kane
Dude,
like
when you're a kid, I already knew that the helmet prevents psychic attacks, and I don't know if that was from the cartoon I was telling you about, or maybe having seen a comic book. It's just again, it's just sort of in the zeitgeist when you know comics. I didn't even have any comic friends, so a lot of this stuff I'm like, where did I pick this up? But it was just sort of out in the universe, and for him to rip the helmet off and to have the helmet, the mini helmet underneath is like the best RuPaul wig reveal ever. It's like, I mean, that's Emmy worthy. I loved it. I lost my mind when I was a kid.
yeah, just always be prepared. I mean, Kane Marco was a Cub Scout growing up. He knew that he probably needed a secondary helmet. Just look at the facial expression on the second to last panel, like just ripping the helmet off and just absolute disgust that someone would be wearing like another little mini sleeve helmet. Just so
Well, Where
So
Rogue is
good.
getting choked out down at the bottom, that face is excellent. And I love where I guess that's Rachel, but you can't, she's almost unrecognizable where she's psychically blasting him. Again, I
Yeah,
love the depiction of powers in art, and that I really like that panel as well. Now, those circles, those interlocking circles, we've seen that. We definitely saw that in the Universo saga, in some of the inner mind things when
yeah,
Saturn Girl went into the other Legionnaires' minds. I think we kind of saw that um, maybe design or something similar.
yeah. He uses that motif to good effect, I think. And this is the kind of like, well, it's not the end, but it's the sort of beginning of the end.
We just end up back where we started.
Just
The
but just really
Juggernaut is fully powered. Black
selling the
Tom's back to
destruction,
normal, and
like the city block is destroyed or whatever. It really sells that well. We get the little interaction between Juggernaut and old mate Cassidy there, and then we kind of get the resolution that I don't think you get in Secret Wars with the X-Men in particular and Spider-Man. So that's kind of fun. They part on good terms. Those people from Grey Malkin Lane and Manhattan-based Spidey. So that's kind of good. And just the fact that these are a bit more static means that some of the wonkiness is sort of gone from the whole piece. So
they also sort
Patrick,
of all they escape from the police altogether. So they bond over that. And there's a very nice epilogue where Pete is surprised to find out that his camera has been busted, so he didn't get any pictures of this amazing battle, which was really an amazing battle. I mean, it was that's really worth the price of admission for this comic. But his editor just happens to need pictures of people, sunning because of the heat wave, and he's able to sell the sun bunny shots that he took just to be a good guy, which
yeah,
just, adds in the element of karma into the whole thing. And Aunt May gets her birthday hat, which this woman must have an entire closet of hats, I would imagine.
an accoutrement.
Yes.
Yeah. So Patrick, just a few thoughts. It's a double-sized issue. If I got this at 10 years old, I'd have adored it as well. And even at now, I only read this like a couple of months ago. Um, it's not bad. Like it does what it
Yeah.
says on the tin, and in a vacuum, this story is great. In a vacuum. However, I think I'm 40 years old. The characters are a little bit off model, and no, I will say maybe Black Tom Cassidy, his whole shtick is like he's always off model. But I'm a sucker for the Spider-Man melodrama, but there was melodrama with no progression. It's kind of like just really overdone. And then, like you said, you've ruined this awesome page with all this stuff about by Web of Spider-Man, in Amazing Spider-Man, Black Cat's here, and then Spectacular Spider-Man, we have Mary Jane Watson, and then oh, my aunt is like everyone always needs money and my rent's due and and it's
Also, you end up back where we started, right? Juggernaut's fully empowered. Black Tom does not have the Juggernaut's power anymore. Everybody's fine, so there's not really any progression.
yeah,
And I totally agree. Actually, I think the characterization, some of the characters are sort of stiff. Juggernaut, not. I feel like the Juggernaut's characterization was very well done and really point on. I feel like Spider-Man's characterization was pretty good, but the X-Men come off a little stiff. I mean, Colossus is always a little stiff, but a little bit of their personality is lacking there. I agree.
yeah, yeah. Well, we hope he loosens up by the time he gets to that discotheque that he's going to on the cover.
Needs a
The
little social lubricant.
Not everyone can draw good Spider-Man webbing, and not all good Spider-Man artists draw good webbing right out of the gate. But as much as I like the Rock Spider-Man, I thought the webbing kind of looked just a bit dumb actually. Although the web shooters looked cool, like he could do all the stuff. And I have like I'm not commenting on the outfit. I'm commenting on how the haberdashery is crafted in the art. and you've got this dude who could draw like the best clothing, and then in the comic, you can't help but just go, "Oh, it doesn't look as cool as like the cover." And I know nothing looks as cool as the cover and truth in advertising and all that sort of stuff, but I just couldn't help but just notice it so much because then when Rogue gets all like goes all big, nothing happens to the clothes. They just all go up
They
a few,
stretch. But
you
that's
know.
because she had those big sleeves. The only I'm agreeing with a lot of your points where maybe the comic could have, it's weaker points, but I draw the line at Rogue's outfit. I don't know why I love the outfit then. I love the outfit
Oh
now.
no! Once
I
again,
think
not
there's
commenting on the
something
outfit
about the
itself.
shape and the
Yeah.
silhouette, even though it does look weird, it does look like almost like a tunic or like a Mexican baja with a belt around it, but without the pattern, of course. But
Okay.
I don't know why. I just love it. I love that outfit.
So chef's kiss from Patrick for
You
the
may see
outfit.
me in one. I'll have a white streak and a mullet and a tunic with a belt
Yeah,
cinched.
and we can all reenact the cover pose. I want to get a tarnished bronze header for our channel, and we will all cosplay as all the characters, and we'll superimpose it in Photoshop. I don't know who's going to have the misfortune of the deep V-neck Colossus
We need to
outfit,
start
but
working out before we try that
yeah.
one.
Um, and I think Spider-Man doesn't leave much to the imagination with his little tilt of the torso and so on. But where does this stand for you, Patrick? I'm gonna start going from. I think this is sort of way, way, way better than kind of mid-tier stuff. So I'm gonna go. Is this like I think this is an improvement on Avengers 298, even though it's a done in one, it's dated a little bit, like it
Ooh.
nothing happens. I'm definitely saying that it's I'm arguing with myself as to whether it's the Marina Saga,
Ooh.
Invasion One, Heavy Metal, Life Death. Like that's what
I'm gonna jump.
just because I'm reading this at 40, if I'm reading it at 10, it's fantastic, and I'm just like, what happened in the story? That was
Yeah,
more
but
my.
the fight and the team up between the X-Men and the Spider-Man just off the bat is so good for me. Even at my age, it's very difficult because, like I said, if you remember that a character had a hole in his sock from 40 years ago,
Oh
it's very
no,
difficult to divorce it completely. So I admit that. But I'm going to start the bidding at, do you think it's better than the classic X-Men version of Giant Size X-Man? I mean,
oh,
yeah,
uh,
sorry.
okay. So this is where we're going to get into the nostalgia factor because I'm like, the first Superman comic I got is Red Glass, and that's a couple of spots below the classic X-Men thing.
Yeah,
And I
me
kind
too.
of does that sort of make sense to you?
No, and you think Red Glass is better than this for you.
So
That's
this
fair.
is where I'm sort of in a like for like scenario. I'm kind of like, well, maybe I just like Red Glass a lot more just because it was like, just happened to be a good Superman story, maybe. I think it's great, but it could just
I
be
like it.
good, but it's the first one. You're kind of in the same boat. Like, this is a good Spider-Man story. It ticks all the boxes. It's a reasonable X-Men story. It ticks all the boxes, but like, you think it's great because it's like, it hits a certain spot. So
Yeah.
that's why we asked. This is like crossfire. This is we asked the hard, tough questions on tarnished bronze. So I'm
Well, okay,
happy.
then let's start a little bit lower for you. Okay, what about comparing it to JLA Annual 1 with Dr. Destiny? That one's very formulaic with beautiful art, and
Yeah.
it was interesting because it had a lot of different characters. But again, not that much happened. It could be seen as a little corny. It was definitely ranked higher for me because that one was nostalgic as well. I think this one is better than that.
Okay, I'm very happy if we put it between the JLA Annual One, which is it's more satisfactory as a story than Annual One. Like the Annual One is delightful for different reasons. Um, and then I'm willing to sort of say, is it just below Red Glass? Like I'm happy to say that substitutes Legion of Superhero Special, The Life Death are acquired tastes and require too much context to really saw in the way that I like them and you like those individual issues in particular. We're not trying to, this is not an acquired taste. This is a done in one issue. The whole point of it is to maintain the status quo. I
Yes.
just think that it does that maybe slightly better than JLA Annual One, which has that really dumb Sandman thing. But
Yes, we
not
didn't
as,
even say that. I don't think
yeah,
we said that on the episode, but I felt the same way. Like, do we really need him?
yeah, and that's where we're going to get into in some of these other classic sort of issues. Like some, just because an issue is very important doesn't necessarily mean it sort of holds up as well as the whole saga holds up. And so that's why I'm happy to put the red glass above this, but they're just
Okay.
I'm just splitting hairs. So this would just, but for me, it's a top 10 comic. It's Greg LaRocque is great at Spider-Man and he does a pretty good fight scene and his Juggernaut is real good and it's done in one. It does what it says on the tin. If you want to delve into some Greg LaRocque deep cuts, I would recommend getting this comic. Obviously, it's not like this whole Legion run, which vacillates from being 3 out of 5 to 5 out of 5, but as a whole is very, very strong. Does that make sense to you, Patrick?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And also, I feel like it's not often in real life that I play this role, but I am the sidekick with the side part. So I think it's fair to put your nostalgic red glass above my nostalgic Marvel team up. Now, the one thing that I'm kind of surprised that I was able to do, and I don't remember, I might need to go back and watch this issue or episode, is how I got Avengers the Gang Council above Red Glass.
So, so I
It was
think
four issues, so there was a lot happening.
at every sort of juncture where we get maybe another 15 or 20 comics to add in, we might do a reshuffling of the order because I mean Kang doesn't live quite as strongly in the memory as anymore, but the whole, not to sidetrack you, dear viewers, but the whole point of this is to for us to sort of be both the advocate and the poo-pooer.
Oh, I agree.
Um,
I agree.
and this
And like I said, when I first started reading the first few pages, I was like, oh, this the dialogue is sounding really stilted. And then I think as I went in, different things were there were other good things like okay, the Juggernaut that worked for the Juggernaut character. So then I'm like, oh, maybe the writing isn't so bad. Then there was the page 14 where it was just all exposition about the other Spider-Man comics. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. And then it got to the battle part halfway through, and I was like, ah, yes. It was like being in a warm bath. So by then I had forgotten all about the
Yeah.
beginning. And I was like, this is great. Now I would never, it wasn't I knew it wasn't going to be universally excellent, like Cool and Gath, for example. I mean, I knew it was going to be sort of somewhere below the top five or so, but
Okay, as we get better comics, I think this will fall out of the top 10. But I'm happy with it being around Red Glass, JLA Annual One, and we're splitting hairs at this point as to,
yeah.
to as to what was better. So you can like, follow, subscribe to the channel using the buttons. You can click on some other videos. Patrick and I haven't fallen out yet, but stay tuned because we are going to read some more of very nostalgic issues for Patrick. So let's see if I can poo-poo his or burst his bubble
Yuck
down
my
the line.
yum.
So thanks again for watching, and we will see you shortly.